Today we're focusing on rashes. In particular, we're going to look at two different kinds of rashes. One is called a purpuric rash and the other is a petechial rash. And we're going to discuss how this can relate to the immune system, in particular a type of autoimmune condition known as vasculitis or blood vessel wall inflammation. So let's get started. So what are these rashes? What's going on? And how is this related to the immune system? What we're seeing here is a rash that is present because of bleeding and blood loss just below the skin. This can be present in tiny amounts when it appears as little dots under the skin, or it can be in larger volumes where you get a bruise-like appearance. And these aren't the kind of rashes that you typically get. While a petechial rash could be something you might easily miss, by the time it's developed into something more sinister looking like a purpuric rash, most people are probably going to get themselves checked out with a doctor, and you may be aware of some of the other serious things that this could be related to. For example, things like meningitis might be in your mind when you're thinking about these purple-coloured rashes that affect the lower legs. How do you know that it is bleeding under the skin or not some other cause? Well, blanching the rash would be an important measure. So, placing pressure over the rash using something like a glass. If you can see that the colour fades, what you're doing is pushing the circulation out of the area. So if it's extra circulation but it's not deposits of blood, the rash should blanch, it should go pale. If the purple area remains purple, it's because of deposited blood, so it's a non-blanching rash. It may also be palpable, so that means if you were to run your finger over the rash, you could feel the change in the surface with your finger without having to see what you're putting your finger. And it may also be painful, so there may be pain where the rash is. So what's happening? What's going on? Well, obviously, blood is leaking out of the small blood vessels. One of the things that could be doing that is that the blood is no longer able to seal up small injuries and small areas of damage. And that could be because you've consumed all the factors that help you to maintain the blood injuries. So small holes, small injuries might need to be fixed. Platelets produce a web-like net to capture cells in them, and clotting factors help activate a series of chemical processes to form a blood clot. And the blood clot is necessary to plug minor traumas and to maintain the health of the blood vessels. So if you have a very, very low platelet count, that could cause this kind of rash. Or if you've consumed all of these chemicals because of some other process in the body, that could lead to spontaneous bleeding and bruising. So we can see that it's actually a little bit complicated as to exactly what causes this kind of rash. These kinds of clotting changes can happen as a result of autoimmune complaints, but we're specifically here to talk about vasculitis. So vasculitis can affect different sized blood vessels, and if we're talking about vasculitis causing this kind of a rash, it's going to be affecting the smaller size vessels, so small and medium sized vessels. What other features might you have if you've got a vasculitis? Well, you may be experiencing joint aches and pains or joint stiffness, especially if these symptoms are bad when you first wake up in the morning. You might be experiencing some tingling or numbness in parts of the body that might suggest blood vessels around nerve supply are being impacted, causing a bit of nerve irritation. You may have had some shortness of breath, which might suggest that you're having some inflammation around parts of the blood vessels of the lung. Of course, a more worrying symptom that's most likely going to make you go to see the doctor is if you've ever had episodes of coughing up any blood, or you've noticed any blood appearing into the kidneys. Systemic features that you may be feeling include feeling generally unwell, having a high fever, having night sweats, or having lost any weight. Sometimes these symptoms can be indicative of a previous infection in a reactive vasculitis, a condition called IgA vasculitis or Henoch-schonlein purpura HSP. This is more common in children. Typically after an infection, 2 or 3 weeks may pass and you may suffer a rash like this, which might also be coming on with some joint pains and maybe some abdominal discomfort. Okay, so you have got a rash like this and you're having some extra symptoms. What do you need to do? Well, I think, as we've said, if you've had the first type, the purpuric rash, the chances are you're probably going to be seeing your doctor because it's quite a dramatic looking rash. But if you notice the second type of rash, it's still really important to get checked out. Your doctor will take a full history. They're going to be looking at whether there might be a blood problem that we discussed, whether they think this could be an inflammatory problem, or is it something else that's unusual that's causing this rash. And it's most likely they're going to run a series of investigations. Particularly, they're going to look at a blood count to see whether you have enough of the platelets. Do you have any evidence of blood loss, like anemia? They might do a clotting test, and they'll probably look for some markers of inflammation. And if that's present at that stage, it's sensible to get a review with a rheumatologist who can do a thorough assessment of the kinds of vasculitis and other connective tissue diseases that can produce these rashes, and they may wish to do some specific antibody testing. Even if you don't turn out to have vasculitis, it is important that you have these rashes checked out early. They can be a sign of serious illness, and even if you did actually get diagnosed with a vasculitis, early diagnosis and early intervention leads to better outcomes. So don't sit on these, get yourself checked out. If you found this helpful, or you'd like a bit more detail about vasculitis, or you have some specific questions that I've not covered, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts in the comments. If you do find these videos helpful, give it a like, give it a subscribe or a share. That can help get these videos seen by more people. Thank you.